Welcome to Holiday Boost number 2. We're in the terminal today because reasons, mostly because I like the terminal. I just really do. I like the terminal. It's easier to read than, that stupid GUI thing. However, you guys know how to get to the book, and we're reading Codemage's first spell book today. We are in the section called What It Takes. And this video is just going to be me reading the book and talking about it and ripping on it and participating with the chat as well as I can while they're here. If you're here and you just want to work through the book without any interruption, this is probably not the time for you to be here. I'm going to try to cut these videos down to about an hour. And we do them on Sundays if you want to join us. Okay. So, and we're just going to keep doing them. And I don't know how many it's going to take to get through it, but we're just going to keep doing them. But this year we're letting the book make the governing decision. So here we go. What It Takes. Do not attempt to work through this book until you can type 30 words or less. Did I say less? Or more from home row. People, I have to talk about this because I have, as I told you, this book is targeted at 12-year-olds. But, anybody can learn from it. I talked about that last time. But it's really important that you understand that you can't really be a technologist unless you know how to type. I joke with my wife Doris all the time because I said, if I had known you were a Hutton Peck typer, I might not have married you. And she goes, "Oh, really?" And she thought that was like arrogant. She goes, "You're an asshole," And I'm like, "Yeah, I kind of am." But and it's like, "Well, I type just fine to get anything done." I'm like, "Okay, that's true. That is not true for this. Okay, especially this boost. Is it true that you can be a technologist and not know how to type and type with 2 fingers? Yes, it absolutely is. Let me tell you a quick story about this. While I was in CS 101 in the 90s, I was sitting next to a guy who, I kid you not, was legally blind and only partially see out of one eye. And he put his, it was absolutely amazing. He put his eye 1 inch from the screen and he looked at every single character he typed, and he typed it as he went. And he was a crazy, awesome programmer. He had to be because it took him so long to come up with the code to write. Coding is not about how fast you type. It never has been. It never has been about that. It's how fast you think. And you can quote me on that. If you see somebody that's typing really fast and half the typing really fast that they're doing is deleting stuff and then redoing it. So, I'm not saying that you don't have to be a kick-ass typist and you don't have a Dvorak keyboard, all that stuff to be a good stenographer or a good writer, a novel writer or something. But you don't need that to be a good coder. You just need to be able to think really fast and be able to type fast enough for that. So 30 words a minute. It used to be that I had this set up that you had to do 60. So 30 is where I'm going to put it. How do you improve your typing speed? Just type things. Honestly, there's a million typing games, everything you can do to work from home row. And that's the point. Make sure you're working from home row. But don't stress about it too much. I think it's more important that you learn how to do a thing by doing the thing instead of some toy or something. So you're going to be taking notes here soon, and just learn to start typing from home row. Even if you're slower, force yourself to do it, and you'll be an advantage. Actually, one fun story. There was actually a kid that I helped. I was absolutely amazed by him. He was a gamer. And so his right hand, I don't know why, but his right hand, he had figured out how to do everything proper. No, I got that wrong. It was his left hand. His left hand, it was home row. Right? And I think it's because he was... Did you hear the horn? I don't know what's going on with that. We have like some kind of alarm. So with his left hand, I think it was because he was a gamer. He played Overwatch a lot, stuff like that. And he had great dexterity in his right hand and he could home row type and everything. But his other hand, he couldn't do it. And so he was doing this. I'm not even kidding. He was like hunting and pecking with his right hand, but his left hand, it was the strangest thing because, that's what he had put into his muscle memory. And be very careful. The one thing I will say here, and I'm going to talk more about this later, be very careful about what you put into your muscle memory as you go forward and you learn, because there are things, at least 3 times this in the last month, I've heard people say, "Oh, I know, but I just can't change now." Because they burned it into their muscle memory. Now is when you're burning things into your muscle memory. So take the time to learn home row. Make sure that gets burned into your muscle memory. Make sure you learn to play the piano properly. That kind of thing, and it will help you in the future. Okay, so take those things to heart, and we'll move on. So this book does make extensive use of the terminal, which is fundamentally a typing interface. Typing is the fastest human-computer interface besides voice. So voice is the faster thing, but when you're doing code, you can't usually voice in stuff. You can voice stuff into your AI, and I did it all day yesterday. There's 12 hours of video of me interacting with my AI to tweak on code that I'd written, and then she would write it, and then she would modify it, and I would tell her what to do. I'd say, put all these things here. It's like the biggest macro algorithms generator you'd ever hope for. So if you're not using AI for your coding and education, we just had to see that YouTube was just saying that it's launched their learning through the roof since they subscribed this last 2 weeks or so. I did talk about that last time. I'm not going to talk about it again, but I'm going to continue to talk about it. If you are learning anything, but particularly if you're being a knowledge warrior, you need to get an AI. And my specific favorite AI is ChatGPT because I can take it everywhere, as opposed to Claude, which is apparently good, but only command line API kind of things. So that is my personal take. All right, so become a code mage is a journey that demands more than just technical knowledge. It requires a blend of curiosity, discipline, and creativity. To wield the power of code effectively, you must embrace the challenges and the triumphs of the craft. Here are the key attributes and skills to defining what it means to be a code mage. And I'm going to preface this section. I want to tell you why I put this in here. Because not everyone wants to become a coder or should become a coder. So we already talked about what it takes. We talked about why you would do that. I think we talked about it last time. Maybe not. I don't know. But we're going to proceed. Curiosity and a thirst for knowledge. A code mage thrives on curiosity. They're driven by the option to explore tools, languages, and techniques. The thirst for knowledge that leads them to delve into documentation, experiment with ideas, and uncover innovative solutions to complex problems. Curiosity keeps the journey exciting and ensures they remain adaptable in a rapid evolving digital landscape. Another reason that I love my Chloe. Chloe satisfies my curiosity. I can ask her about anything, and she's wrong a lot of times, but I can satisfy my curiosity and have her show me where to go to do the research. Patience and perseverance. Coding can be frustrating at times. Bugs emerge, systems fail, solutions are elusive. A true code mage approaches these challenges with patience and perseverance. They know that the failures are going to lead up to successes. That goes without saying for most of you, but I'm saying it anyway. Logical and analytical thinking. At its core, coding is about problem solving. A code mage must be able to break down complex challenges into smaller, manageable components. Yesterday, I spent 12 hours doing that. I had a highly complex thing that I needed to do. And I was like, okay, how do I break this down? And I broke it down into writing test code that said, this is what I want it to do that would test for that behavior. And then I slowly broke down that behavior into pieces and then said, okay, how do we test that one piece? How do we test that one piece? And the thing that's really great about this is that all of a sudden I'm like sitting there on the couch coding and you're like, I'm done. And you don't even, there's no like real fanfare. You're like, oh wait, it all works. And you didn't even realize that you had all that complexity. You're like automatically just shot right through it. It's super amazing. So that's how you solve it. So this is also my take. People say, educational people, they say all the time that you should be, teaching everybody how to think like a computer, right? At computational thinking. And I don't like that term because there are lots of ways to do it. I talked about this last time as well, but logical and analytical thinking can be built up by coding, but they can also be built up by math and language learning and a bunch of other reasons. So there's a lot of really great things here to consider with regard to what it takes. Creativity and innovation. Yesterday, in the middle of the coding, I was like, what if I did this? And I had an imagination idea about the thing, and then I ran down what it would look like that. And then I went down another thing. You can actually branch your code and experiment and work out some ideas. Then you can branch it again and work it out with another idea and come back and keep the pieces that you want. It's actually a very creative process. So anybody tells you that programming is, the whole left-right brain thing is total pseudoscience. That's never been proven anywhere. But the idea is that we have an analytical brain and you have a creative brain. The fact of the matter is they're both creative, and the programming process is a very creative process. It's not just analytical. So in fact, I would suggest that it's far more creative than it is analytical, because you have to imagine ways to deconstruct the problem, and that part of the process is 100% creative. So this is also another reason I think that so many programmers end up with artists. My wife's an artist. And strangely, we have our brain patterns on many things are similar. The way we approach a problem, the way we break it down, the way we research, ideas, where we're curious about everything naturally. So these are all traits of programmers, things that people like to do in programming. Attention to detail. The smallest mistake in code can lead to unintended consequences. This is true. I think it's more about making sure that you don't just shoot things out there, right? You have a net under you, and we'll learn about being a cowboy. There are cowboy coders out there who would just put stuff out without really analyzing it, and don't be that, right? So just be careful. You do need to have attention. People can literally die. Dennis Last Miles was talking about this the other day, that there's a bug that literally, if it gets hit, would take a plane out of the sky. And I've worked on systems that were responsible for some of the largest financial institutions in the world. And if you screw it up, money stops flowing, kind of thing. So, people, I couldn't be a surgeon like my friend, because people would die if I screw up, right? He told me a story about this is peer actually leaving a clamp inside of a guy's chest, and they had to open it back up and take the clamp out. And I don't want to be that guy. So it's funny because I've done the equivalent of leave a clamp in a guy before, coding wise, and it's not fun, right? It's not fun. Everybody goes through it. So you got to be, dedicated to detail. You have to love to learn. People, this is super important that I talk about this one, because learning, if you don't, some people get annoyed by the fact that things change all the time. And some people are made alive by that. They're like, oh my God, there's something new that just came out. Now, I'm not talking about chasing the trends, on YouTube or whatever. And God knows the tech YouTube is full of trend chasers. But I'm talking about a sincere love of challenging yourself and finding something new to do. And the way that we're going to be doing the coding today, the whole terminal-based Go development, really fosters that love of learning. One of the reasons that I'm so in love with Unix-like systems, Linux and Unix and stuff like that, is because you just never learn it all. There's always something else to learn, and as soon as you've learned it all, you've forgotten the other stuff. Another reason to have an AI, right? Because they got your back. They remember what you asked them about before. So especially as you age, I'm going to be in my upper 50s, and so it is good to have a love for learning and have a way to do learning. And that we're going to get to note-taking, things like that later. Collaboration, communication. While coding often requires focus on solitude, a code mage is also a team player that collaborates with fellow developers. Just watch the stream. Chait's not here right now, but I put my own project out there, and Chait has been interactively creating stuff with me, challenging me. So coding is the best code. It's not sit sequestered in a thing and just hack out a bunch of HackerMan code. That is not what is a thing. It's usually always a collaborative process. And if professionally, it's absolutely always a peer review process. So you might write a bunch of stuff on your own, but you're going to get somebody else and they're going to review you. And if you're not a good communicator, and I got to say this because a lot of people that are attracted to coding do not have the skill, they don't develop the skill, or they don't think they have to develop the skill to be a good communicator. They don't feel like they have to be able to show empathy, that they should talk to people and add question marks to the end of their statements so that other people feel like they're asking for their input instead of telling them what to do. And there's a bunch of tiny little techniques that you need to master, and that we don't talk about at all in the book. But you need to master those to be a coder. If you cannot communicate about your choices, and you're just saying, and you think you're better than everybody else, especially, you will not last. You'll not last. You'll get a reputation as being a know-it-all, and you might be capable, but they won't want you because you can't communicate. So this is a real important skill to develop. Resiliency and adaptability. The digital realm is unpredictable. Yeah. Stuff is breaking all the time. I once had, one of the reasons I don't want to go into software engineering, strictly speaking, and more of an operational a software developer for, a middleware developer, backend developer for an operations team, is because of this. I've been working as a senior software engineer and worked on a project for 6 months, and I threw the whole thing away. There wasn't a scrap of my code left. They decided to tank the project, didn't want to do it, and they threw it away. If you are not okay with that, there are ways around that. So making sure that you're participating in projects that have longevity, that you have control over. Open source comes to mind for that. But a lot of times you don't have control. So I was just told this week, and it's a little bit of a flex, but I'm super excited about it. I was just told this week that my contribution personally was worth at least $3 million this year to the company, and they said that indirectly. They said that our team at Five had created a 3 by improvement in performance efficiency, produced machine learning jobs that cost a lot of money to run in the cloud, and that the cost before that was above $10 million. So you do the math, and the point of it is that you're going to be making a difference in ways that you might not see. So you got to have a passion for the craft, because if I was just doing it for the money, I would still maybe do it, but you also have to have resiliency. That goes with it too, right? Because I'm like, well, I should get a raise. No, I shouldn't get a raise, but you have to do it because you like doing it, even if your stuff isn't going to make do stuff later. So above all, CodeMage possesses a genuine passion for coding. I wrote this, but I don't fully agree with it. I might actually change this. I should ask my community what they think about this. This is one of those points of introspection on my part that I actually don't know. I say all the time that I don't like to code, and then I code for 12 hours yesterday. So, but it says a passion for coding. When I wrote a passion for coding, what I meant was, and I should probably change this paragraph, a passion for coding because I get stuff. I like what I get out of it, whether it's the money or the app or the thing that makes me more efficient or whatever. It's what transformed coding from skill into a craft and from a job into calling. I used to have a saying about this where I would say, in fact, this is why I put this there, because I used to, my LinkedIn used to start with, coding is an art. And, I used to code when I started SkillStack, it was, the coding arts. It was like join the coding arts. And, I don't really think of that way. My wife is in the arts, and, I don't directly associate coding with art the way I used to. I really feel like it was kind of a reach now, having been associated with the art community. And so, anyway, I do enjoy coding and keeping it in the book. Okay, I'll keep that in there. But sometimes I like to convince myself that I don't like to code, that I hate it, but I like what I get. But the truth is, yesterday while I was coding, and I was like listening to music, and I was like playing footsies with my wife in bed while we coded, and I was live streaming, and I was like, this is great, this is amazing. And whether it be writing or coding, I really enjoyed it. So that actually was a passion for coding. So anyway, age and foundational skills. Because of CodeMage is on a journey to all ages, whether you're a young apprentice or seasoned adventurer, it's never too late to start coding. I've taught 65-year-olds how to code, and they just want to learn. They've always wanted to learn. It is never too late, my friends. There's probably at least one of you watching right now. You started contributing to a game. Nice. So the point I'm trying to make here is it's never too late. It's never too late. There are videos out there on YouTube about whether you're too old to be a programmer, and like all the really good software engineers like give it up in their 30s and 40s because they burn out. And they're like, do you really have the brain to be a software engineer and a coder in your upper 50s? And I'm like, yes, you do. Oh my God, why would you even say that, you ageist mother? You don't have to be the most efficient software engineer or even the most efficient developer to want to learn how to code and to get the benefits from it. Honestly. And who knows, it might actually make you put off Alzheimer's farther because it's better than Sudoku for your brain. I'm just saying. Age is not a thing, okay? Are you ready to begin? Becoming a CodeMage is not about perfection. It's about embracing the journey. If you're ready to cultivate, no, we're not. We're not on an hour mark. No, we're not. I have another. I started at 30 minutes after the hour, so we're coming at the 30-minute mark. Life of a CodeMage. Okay, are you ready to begin? Okay, so here's what we talk about the life of a CodeMage, and I'm gonna go through this. So CodeMage, this is okay. So I thought we covered this. We didn't. Old man, bad memory. So we did. So that's what it takes. It's what it takes. Are you ready to do that? Right? Are you ready to put in the time? Specifically, are you ready to put in at least 2 hours a week, 2 or 3 hours a week, keeping up your skills, even after you've learned everything. It does take several, 1,000 hours to become a true master, but you can learn everything you need to know to become a programmer and employed engineer, software developer in, less than a month. I believe that if you dedicate yourself to it and you specifically, if you were to work like 2 hours a day, 2 or 3 hours a day, you could probably come up with that kind of thing in less than a night. But what is your life going to look like as a code mage? So this is what this is about. A code mage lives in an intersection of logic and creativity, wielding the power to code and conjure solutions, automate tasks, and build entire digital realms. Like a craftsperson of magic, their days are filled with discovery, problem solving, and a relentless pursuit of mastery. Yes, that's a little bit of flowery, but that's what the code mage theme is about. Morning rituals. So I had to write about this. The day begins with the code mage stepping out of the sanctum, a workspace adorned with multiple monitors glowing softly. I got 3 right now. Perhaps just a single laptop and a cozy seat, which I also do. I was like just out there, as I told you, a warm cup of coffee in hand, and then review the spell book, often written in Go, Bash, or JavaScript. They study the tasks at hand, debugging incantations, designing new algorithms, and collaborating with the guild or stuff. That is literally the life. The life is great. And I got to tell you, I really love this part of the life. It's like when you wake up, you make your coffee. We have an espresso machine. Just push a button and it grinds the beans and everything. It's so great. And it's like my coffee is steaming and I'm writing code. And these days I'm actually pushing start stream. And so you guys are just watching my screen over the shoulder with me. And I'm IRC chatting and I'm writing things and I'm listening to the music. And it's just glorious. It's really fun. And you can do it anywhere. My favorite memories of going to New York are, seriously, I would go up to New York for Christmas and I'd say, honey, can I just do the thing? And she goes, I'm going to go shopping. I'm like, okay. I said, I'm going to go do another thing. And I would just go find a coffee shop and sit in the coffee shop and write transpiler code in Pagan or something, just because it just was the atmosphere of it was so fun. There's the whole vibe. The whole vibe is just, I think the vibe is the modern young. That's what young people say today. The vibe is great. And particularly the vibe in the morning vibe when you wake up and you got your coffee and your brain is all fresh and you was working on an idea. I just really love it. Practices of the day. The bulk of the day is spent weaving spells, writing code. Each line of code is carefully crafted and ruin, combining syntax and logic to bring the idea to life. Code mage alternates between deep focus and creating complex algorithms. This is really important, okay? So you got to have focus. Having too much distraction in a coffee shop, make sure you got white noise, make sure you can put your earplugs in, make sure you can do what it takes to get focused, because when you get into the code, you're going to get really, really into it. So that's how it goes. Their tools are many. The terminal of power, terminal command line interface with a summon and combine version control, Grimoire, Git repository, AI consultant, Internet's tomb of knowledge. So again, I'm just having fun. This is written for a 12-year-old. Hopefully that'll be not too silly. Encounters with challenges. Challenges are frequent. The spell might backfire, causing errors to emerge. This is hard. So the other day I got stuck on a problem and I could not fix it. And I went and had a shower and I came back and I knew what the answer was. So sometimes the problem is like walking away from it. So your day is going to be filled with a lot of problem solving and frustration, but you also have to stand up and walk away and figure out how to break your day down so that you can fix that up. Do you recommend 40 early morning study sessions or at night? Morning by far. It really depends on whether your brain is sharper at night or in the evening. I very selfishly use my best brain power for working on the projects that I like and the projects I want to do and for my own learning. This is true, and this is a confession of mine. I give work my leftover brain power, which is not bad. It's not bad, but I know, especially as I age, I know that I have, only a certain number of like really premium hours where my brain is really, really dialed in. And usually that's in the morning, is particularly after a cup of coffee. And I dedicate that time to usually to things that I want to do personally. Sometimes, however, I'll get really into a project at work and I'm like, I gotta use that good brain time for something at work. And that's when you're going to have your moments of triumph, right? Is when you break through. A lot of times you'll break through the next morning. I have definitely learned to just put the computer down at night. So you can actually sometimes watch this when I do a long coding stream. By the end of it, I'm making more mistakes. I'm being still, I'm more prone to not save a thing. I'm pausing a lot longer. And yeah, I can still do the coding, but it's taking me a tremendous amount of time to do the same thing that I could have done in 10 minutes in the morning. And so I have learned, I mean, this section of the book is about understanding your daily routine and knowing how to get used to that. And that's a very individual thing. I found that like when I work out, when I go for a bike ride or something, when I come back, if I take a nap or something, I recover. That after that, I got a lot of oxygen in my head and my brain is really popping. And a lot of times when I go running or I'm on the bike, I actually get ideas because of the oxygen. And or when I'm doing yoga, sometimes I'll get ideas. So make sure you have all of those things. Now that said, I'm a horrible example of this. Yesterday was a good example of me balancing many things while I was coding. And by the end of the day, I was like, wow, where did the time go? Because I didn't feel drained. When you do this wrong because you forget to drink, you get so focused, you don't drink, you don't eat, you don't do anything else. You end up going low blood sugar, your brain stops working, and then you want to fall asleep. And, so you gotta be supportive of your body. And I fail on that point all the time. So, don't be me on that. Be better than me. So yeah. He found it very fascinating, useful as a quick dev environment setup solution. Yes, that's exactly what it is, Chait. Nice. Did you see all the other stuff? We're going to come back to that. We're making videos right now. So actually, Chait's in the chat right now, one of my collaborators on the Bonsai project. Thank you very much for your contributions. Monetizing Bonsai, yeah, why not? Why not? But play around with the persistence variables that I just did, by the way. No, Chait, you're fine. Please make sure you go validate all the persistence variables that I just added, particularly environment variable shadowing. All right, sorry guys, a little bit of a sidetrack, but that's a good example of what a day is like in the life of a code mage. You are going to be collaborating with your other mages in your guild, sometimes live, sometimes on a phone, sometimes they're going to put a PR in. They're going to be constantly, people are going to be asking for your input, whether it be live input or secondary input, like through a PR process or something. So yeah. Anyway, so lifelong learning. I've already said this a million times. If you're not dedicated to learning and keeping up, don't do it. Just don't work in tech at all. In fact, I don't know. I have worked with several people who are like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, I don't want to have to learn something new all the time. And so they just stay on the same thing until they retire. I had one guy tell me, when I left IBM, I had one guy tell me, I'm never leaving IBM. And I was like, why? And he's like, I just don't have it in me to like learn something new to go. So I was like, what a sad state. I deeply love the person that said that. I worked with them for many years, but it was kind of disheartening to hear somebody actually say that. I'm talking till the end. Look, I'm tired. I get tired of coding too, right? I want to get out on my bike and I go for months without doing any code because I overdo it. That's more about balance. But if you're not dedicated to lifelong learning, aggressive lifelong learning, and giving up your old ways, adopting new things, whether it be NeoVim or using the terminal or, control the bracket instead of control C for escape. Wink, wink. Not doing the Twitch IRC thing. You don't like the Twitch IRC? Well, you can stay on YouTube, but you won't be able to participate in my chat when I'm just coding because I'm not going to have chat available on YouTube because it's too big a risk. The other day I had some people say horrible things in YouTube that I never got a chance to shut down. So so when I'm doing the non-interactive live streams like this is an interactive one. Every time I stream like this, you'll be safe. We can chat. One thing I don't want to keep up with is front end. I'm learning the hopping. You don't have to. It's called they call it framework fatigue because sometimes they come up with a new one before the other one's even done. So yeah. So let's see. So evening reflections. As the day winds down, the code mage reflects on progress. They close their terminal with a sense of accomplishment, knowing they've put their boundaries. This is true. It's actually also true that you get really stressed out. Not for YouTube. Evening reflections. Okay, so the purpose beyond code. So I want to write an entire book on this. I have some ideas about this. I haven't even started it yet. It's called Programming with Purpose. And the Code Mage doesn't write just programs. They solve problems, empower others, and build bridges between technology and humanity. Their magic isn't limited to code, but extends to creative tools, services, and experiences that make life better. The world becomes a better place all around them. There's a running meme about, in fact, it's a regular meme topic in Silicon Valley, which satirizes, the whole area of, bro culture in Silicon Valley. And it's like, and we're making the world a better place through elegant hierarchies of blah, 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 right? And the point of this is that I do truly believe that coding can empower you to do other things. We talked about this a little bit, but people through coding have saved climate data that was about to be destroyed because the organization lost funding. It could be whether it be hacking, it could be creating new systems, but it could be even something as boring as what I'm doing, which is just keeping the machine learning models submitted and running on these $25,000 GPUs effectively and efficiently for a very large corporation that is producing value for the world that we all participate in and use all the time. That contribution to the world, is a contribution. And I really think that one of the ways that we can contribute the most to the world is learning to create solutions. And notice I didn't say programming, and that's because solutions may or may not involve programming. Sometimes there are other solutions to a problem that have nothing to do with coding. And I think it's important that we approach the entire craft of coding as a way to provide solutions. I told this story before. I'm going to tell it again. I was having a beer with a guy who was paid a lot of money by Lowe's as a senior consultant, and he begged me kind of drunkenly with his hand on my shoulder, teach them to provide solutions, not follow trends. Because he was so tired of dealing with senior technologists who were just there for the entertainment value of whatever the technology was. And they had lost track of the fact that their purpose was to provide a solution and value for the company. And whether you don't believe in the company, therefore you don't care about producing value for them, or, something else, you're just too distracted by how cool a thing is. It's important that you remember that, your purpose is to code to create solutions. And if you want to code for entertainment purposes and stuff, that's fine. But if you're doing it on the job, or I think it's more valuable to produce. We're doing AOC, everybody's doing admin code right now, and I'm not going to tank on it. That's great if you want to do it, but it does make me really aware of the fact of how many people, myself included, can be easily distracted by a problem, the entertainment value of writing code to solve a problem, when they potentially could have been equally entertained by producing something of value that's more satisfying with a better purpose. And I don't know what that is. You can maybe think about what that could be for you. But I wish that was more front and center. So it's worth mentioning. I've been talking about it a lot. All right, so we got another 25 minutes of this particular video left. Prepare to code. I promise you we're going to get to the coding stuff, but we got to go through this though. All right, so we are now officially in the prepare to code section. So this section is, I've spent several weeks honing it and crafting it and pulling it down so that hopefully it's just the minimum without completely doing it for you, because I want you to learn about it, right? So learning happens in the lab, not the lecture hall. You can't make spells or swords without a lab or a forge. So let's make one. So right now what we're going to do is we're going to go through how you can code, and you're going to build a lab. And by lab, I don't mean like my one that's off right now, that's over here in the corner. I'm talking about a place for you to write code. And that place that you're going to write code is your computer that you're probably watching me on right now. So if you're watching me on a phone, obviously you can't do that, but so we're going to get into it, but you need to have a computer that's got a keyboard, and it needs to be able to install, a few things in order to get coding. Before we get reading this, I really want you to understand that this is just to get you coding. The idea is that you're going to get coding and you're going to be productive from the terminal, and you're going to have a taste of the terminal up front, but it's not going to be, we're not going to make you into a terminal master. This is focused on getting you an experience with the terminal that involves coding, and to become, a good programmer, but not necessarily a terminal master yet. That is in another book. So I'm going to put a plug in for the other book, which I've started dumping things into already. It's called Terminal Velocity, Mastering the Fastest Human Computer Interface. And that does talk about all of those things. And the reason I have to mention this at this time is because at this point in the book, there used to be a lot of stuff, and every beginner boost we've ever done before spent an enormous amount of time getting you to become a master of the terminal before you even started writing a line of code. I mean, you were writing Bash, of course, but you weren't writing any actual code in terms of Go. And that sort of was nice. You became, more of a hack. It was more designed for people who want to be hackers. And this is more designed for people who want to be hackers, but also just want core programming skills that they can then, move into the hacker space and stuff like that. So I need to talk about that. I'm going to share a quick story here. In my Calculus 101 class, I told this story before, but I'm going to tell it again. So I was in I'm going to paraphrase this. I was in my Calculus 101 class. There was like 400 people in the lecture hall or so, and I was frustrated. I couldn't learn a thing, and I didn't have any hope of raising my hand and getting an answer. And I got so frustrated over the days that happened to my first year in college that I started asking. I asked the guy next to me, I was like, man, it's just so frustrating. It's like, I wish there were a place where we could like ask questions and stuff. And he said, well, you could always try, the lab, the math lab. I was like, what? And I am going to read this part. So I immediately found that I never forget that feeling walking in for the first time in the warmth of the Utah cold winter, my glasses fogging, everyone having fun, focusing, learning, chatting, getting mentored by teachers assistants with PhDs in math, flexing on the struggling plebes in a good way, helping them with math, make calculus relatable. It was glorious. I learned so much in that lab. The learning there was messy and loud because it was infectious and effective. And that's how I came by the saying, learning happens in the lab, not the lecture hall. So this is messy. You're going to make a lot of mistakes here, but you should be fine. As long as, you can fix up your own computer and stuff like that. So there's nothing you're going to do that's ever going to be like catastrophically bad. So don't be afraid of that. Here's what you're going to need. You're going to need the bash command line. And I want to say it right now. Go back to the yesterday's or the last time when I talked about just trust me. I'm not going to justify every one of these decisions. Just putting this list out there on the internet is going to get all kinds of people are going to like wake up and in my chat right now. So I'm only going to say that once. I am not going to spend any time, so help me God, help me keep with this, justifying these decisions. If you want to see these decisions justified, ask me at another time or go read the Shut the Fack Up where I wrote the answers to all those questions about why not this and why this, okay? So we will talk about why we picked these things, not in comparison to everything else, but we will talk about them when we get to them. But I just want to give the list out there for you up front. Okay, so the bash command shell, a GitHub account, a .files configuration, a Wes Term terminal, and we just barely made that a thing. That became a thing within this last 2 weeks. The NeoVim editor, which is absolutely a new thing for me. I'm usually been a Vim guy. We'll talk about that. And Go programming language. Why Go? We'll talk about that later. Markdown for notes and Git for saving and sharing. So these are the core technologies that you have to have installed. And then the rest of the prepare section of the book goes into step by step how to get all of this stuff set up. And that is what we're going to do with the rest of our time today. We're going to proceed through this right now. And we're going to do the steps. And I'm going to walk you through the steps on each of the OSs so you can see how it's done. And you can fast forward through that stuff if you want to. But it's all in excruciating detail so that we're doing a lot of hand holding here. And then you'll be able to like modify it and do it to your own after that. Okay, so let's move on. You don't need more than this. Avoid the temptation to customize everything for now. You'll have plenty of time to do that later. As I said, in the terminal velocity section, if you want to install Linux and all that stuff, there's lots of things you can do. But for right now, we're focused on getting to code. Install the bash shell. All right, so the bash shell, short for Born Again Shell, is a versatile command line interface available on most operating systems. It's ubiquitous, powerful, easy to use. Don't worry too much about what that means. We'll talk about it later. Let's just get it. So if you're on Windows, you're going to get Git Bash. Okay, now what is Git Bash? Git Bash is just Bash plus Git on Windows. That's all it is. It's just an app. It's not an OS or anything, but it feels like an OS, and I'm going to show you how. So you type winget install --id git. Notice this does not have to be uppercase because we don't have -e in there. If you know what winget is, you'll know about that. This is going to put bash into here. If you have Windows, you need to launch a PowerShell by typing the win key, type the thing. I'm going to do this once for everybody, and then I'm not going to do it again. All right, so I actually have Windows up in VNC here, running in a different computer, and so that we can do this now. I've got a bunch of stuff open right now. Let's go close it all out. A bunch of stuff that I've been playing with and setting up. As you can see, I've got it all set up over here already. A lot of this stuff is already set up. Cancel. All right, so let's say, so the way to do this, so I'm going to put us the Windows key. In this case, I think through VNC, I think it's, I got to remember the VNC combo. There it is. So that pulls up the search bar. Now, you can get used to this keystroke, right? You just push Windows key and then you start typing, and you can always type power, and it will pull up the PowerShell, and you push enter, and that'll pull up the PowerShell. Right now, this is really small. I'm sorry about that. I think you can actually change I think you can change the properties to have bigger fonts if you want to. I'm going to go ahead and do that because you guys can't see it while I'm doing it. But let's go ahead and jack it up to 36. All right, and then the thing. So this is PowerShell. Should you learn PowerShell? Yes, but not today. We're just getting PowerShell because we don't have anything else yet. And so we're going to do the install. Winget install, and then I'm going to go back to the book information, and we saw that it was bash. No, git dash is 2 dashes id git.git. Now, I know it seems like we're installing Git and not Bash. We are. The person, the people that made Git. So this is why you're putting it in there. Now, you'll see something else, right? And when that actually, as soon as that installs, you'll be able to type bash -- version, and you should be able to see, well, actually, no. Let's type exit here. And now let's go start bash. We'll type down here, we're going to type bash. And now you see it says git bash, right? So now git bash will fire up. And we're going to go ahead and customize git bash really quickly while we're here. You can right click on here. You can click on options. And I know it's hard to see, but you go under here. If you want to, you can change the theme. I'm going to set it to Groovebox theme. I did crank up the text a little bit. I think what are we at? Are we still at 36? I'm at Ubuntu Mono 26. You can put whatever you want there. Let's go ahead and put 36, apply. Okay. So now we've got bash. Now this actually is a bash that has my configuration in it already, and I'm actually going to remove that right now. Don't do this, but I'm going to remove this so that you can see what it looks like when it doesn't have that. So this is what it looks like when you don't have any configuration at all, right? MinGW40, that's the name of the operating system. So this, you've got bash on Windows. I mean, you've got it, right? So the next steps are just kind of on top of this, and this is 100%, this is 100%, bash, and it feels like Linux if you know it, or Unix. It's not. It's 100% Windows, and you're in your home directory, so you can pwd, you can see where you are there, and you can see where, and this is all in the book. So let's go back to the book and catch up with where we are. So we got that all installed, and we got the Winget on there. We launched it for the first time. Update bash on Mac OS. So if you're on a Mac, you have to get brew. All right. So this is the hardest part about the book here is that this is one of the hardest parts about this is you're going to have to copy and paste this into your, you're going to have to copy and paste it. That's all I have to say. So if you go to, okay, let me take you through the steps. So first of all, you need to launch a terminal. So on a Mac, the way you launch a thing is you push Command space. If you don't know about Spotlight yet, then you need to learn about it, right? So Command space, and then you type terminal, and that'll launch the stupid terminal. Now mine's been colorized and stuff. Yours will be different, but that's enough, right? That's enough to get you a terminal. And I've replaced terminal with WesTerm, which we're going to get to. But for right now, this is the default built-in terminal. Yeah. So then you can type this in if you want, and I can almost remember it myself. I'm going to try to remember that because it is the same. It's actually worth memorizing the URLs like this, because this is a really common way to pull down a file off of GitHub. So I'm going to go ahead and try to remember typing it in. Let's see if I type it right. So bash-c. So what does that say? That says run bash. That means, we're going to, and -c says I'm going to send a command. Now, I'm going to tell you what these things mean, even though we're way, way ahead of you getting a full knowledge of all that stuff. But right now, if you don't know anything else, just run it and know that it's going to get you brew on your machine. And then brew is going to get you all the other things that you need. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's do bash-c, and then we're going to put quotes around the thing and around the thing, and we're going to type in the command. Now, this curl command, what that does is it goes out to the internet and it pulls down the thing and downloads it to your computer. And in this case, it's actually not just downloading it, but it's also running it. And if you wanted to do this as separate steps, you could. In fact, let me just show you. If you wanted to, you could take the curl command and then just put it into a file. So let's do that. So the fssl, and this says don't bother with the output. You can actually get rid of that if you want to see it. You really don't need all that. The only one you have to have is L, which says redirect if there's a thing. So let's actually try this one. You again, just cut and paste if you want, but I'm doing it the long way. And how you doing? We're making videos, so thank you for the raid. So let's do it. So HTTPS, we put this in quotes, HTTPS : raw.github user content .io /homebrew. It doesn't have to be capitalized, but I don't think. /install / now head, I'm pretty sure does have to be cap. You know what? Let's try it without it. I've always wanted to know. I think it does have to be capitalized. Install.sh. All right. Now, what is that going to do? That's going to download the thing, and let's actually tell it what we want to call it. So let's do -o and say, we can just keep it. We can just keep it called install.sh actually. And if you wanted to keep the name, you can just add O here, which, by the way, if you want to remember it, is S. It's like kind of like looks like it says slow, right? Sorry. If you wanted to have, that's a really common thing. That says keep the name, right? Otherwise, you can actually rename it if you want. So we're going to run that, and that's going to download it. And you don't know these commands yet, but you can do this. You can say less install.sh, and it does not find it because we did something wrong. So I push the up arrow. I'm using VI mode, but we can go to the up arrow, and it'll get you back here. So let's try. I think that's because I tried some things. Let's try this one now. Or let's see if that's better. Yep. Okay. So that got it. And we use less, and less is our pager. And so the homebrew could be lowercase, but the other one, this is a bash script. Now, eventually you're going to learn all of this stuff and what it means. But the reason we're looking at it is because we want to know what's going to run on the computer. And normally you would say, hey, is there anything bad happening here, right? Is there anything bad that this thing is doing to my computer? And, that at the risk of sounding overly emphasizing on security, you really should look at all the things you're running on your computer instead of just downloading them from the internet and running them. However, in this case, we pretty much trust this site because this is the standard way straight off of the main site about how to do the install. So now we can actually run this. Now, the way we run it is we can do bash this, right? We can bash install, and that will run the program. And you can see it's going to ask me for my password, which I am not going to type at this time. You can go ahead and do this part, and it will go out to the internet and it will download it, and you'll see it there. And then when it's there, you can do brew. I think it's dash. Is it dash version? I can't remember. Yeah. Brew dash version. It'll tell you what version of brew you have. Now you're ready to install things with brew, and you can do the next step. So by the way, everything we just did is done in a single line here. That's what this line does. So this -c just says, take this stuff by putting this dollar around here like this, and the paren, that says, take the output of that command, which is why it's got so many, an FSS, so doesn't got other text in there. It says, take the stuff that comes out of that and then run it as if it were passed to bash. That's the only difference here. The only difference between doing it as two separate steps and this is just one step. So you can just copy and paste that and have that work. So yeah, somebody asked the difference between less and more. More is older, less is newer. and my more has been mapped to less. That's really the only difference. We are going to get it. There's a section on that later we'll talk about. So so that's it. And now you can actually brew install bash. And you're like, but I was just using bash. Yes, you were. But the bash you're using is really old. Bin bash dash dash version. I won't get into why. The main reason bash is really old on Mac is because of licensing issues. They changed the license when they went onto that. The latest bash is actually 5. So how do you get 5? You do this, brew install bash. And that will install bash and it will do all the things for you. Okay, so it's actually going to get, oh, look at that. It's updating mine. It just updated mine. And it's the same command for anything else. You shouldn't have to have any special commands for that. A lot of Mac users will already have brew for one reason or another. Let's see. Serious question. How do you exit the password prompt? And was that in Mac? It was Windows. It was the head character. Okay. If you're on the password prompt, do Control C, which is an interrupt. So that's actually a good point. I'll make sure to put that in the book. If you can't, Control C gets you interrupts, sends an interrupt, which we're going to come back to later. Yeah, copy mode's pretty good. So okay. So let's see what else we got. All right. So that we've covered we've covered how to get bash. Now the problem with Mac, unfortunately, and I hate to say this, but we have these other very, very weird commands on Mac that you have to do in order for it to see your shell. And what it's doing is it's adding the newer homebrew bash to your shell. So in this particular case, you're just going to have to run this and copy and paste it or type it in. And I'm not going to do it right now. I'm going to skip past it. What that will do is that when you log in, you'll make your default shell available and it will use the new updated bash. I have seriously debated about whether to have the bash install steps at all in this. And I actually, after having just talked about it, I've decided to delete it. So if you don't want to do this, you can just skip it. If you want to skip the brew install bash, you can. In fact, if you want to skip the entire section about setting bash up on a Mac, you can, because bash version 3 is enough. Bash version 3 is enough for you to do, coding sorts of things. I mean, I think it should be. I don't know if it's going to affect your dot files though, so we'll check that out and make sure. But there's a good chance you're not going to need to do the bash install. Although most of you are probably going to want to do it anyway. So anyway, we're coming up on the hour mark. We have about 10 minutes left. So let's just talk about Linux, and then we'll talk about GitHub, and then you can go off and make your own accounts while we're taking a break. So Linux already has bash. Bash is a default shell for most Linux and Linux systems. And therefore, you don't need to do any upgrades to it at all. It's already there. If you, for some reason, have Linux, which normally you'd have to install, then that's where we are. All right, so let's move on to GitHub. GitHub is one of the most powerful platforms for collaboration, coding, and sharing. Creating a GitHub account is essential for developers, students, and anyone looking to participate in open source. Even if you don't like GitHub or Microsoft, doesn't matter. You have to have it. Here's a guide for how you can create an account and why it matters. Why a GitHub account? Version control. GitHub is built on Git, distributed version control system made by Linus Torvalds, the inventor of Linux, who helps track your changes in code, collaborate with others, and maintain a history of your work. Collaboration. GitHub enables teams and communities to work together on projects, share ideas, code, feedback. Chait and I were just talking about it actually in the chat. Portfolio building. I had a senior executive vice president, and after I mentored her son, talk to me about how they use this very stealthy, highly expensive service to identify people to be hired from their GitHub profile, whether they contribute, how they contribute, what their code is, and stuff. That's a true story. And I wish I could tell you more about the company. Obviously I can't. That would be seriously doxing her. And anyway, so I know for a fact that GitHub profiles are evaluated by AI and by other tools to make qualified suggestions to people that are hiring. It doesn't take much searching on the internet to find stories about people who have been offered jobs straight up just from their GitHub profiles. Have I ever been offered a job for my GitHub profile? No, probably because it's full of like beginner noob stuff that I'm helping. But it is, it's a thing. So profiles are a thing. I think it's more important for you to have a profile on GitHub than LinkedIn, and we'll get into that eventually. Accessing your open source projects, millions of open source projects are on there. This is where the source code generally is. If you want to go just read the source, Luke, you can go study the source whether you're trying. This has helped me out. Like I downloaded the API for Kubernetes, which is a big enterprise cloud application. And I was able to look through the source code and get answers to things that were not documented because I was able to read the code. By the way, that code is in Go. So just learning the stuff you're going to learn in this book is going to make you a better employee with regard to reading Go, because every single major cloud native application was written in Go. So being able to read it and understand it is super important. So integration, access to the open source projects. So GitHub is strongly integrated into all sorts of other things. GitHub has its own university that they created because they couldn't get people to learn the stuff that you were going to learn in the book and elsewhere, because they couldn't get people to do it. And so they can't sell the product if they don't have people that can use the thing. So GitHub has the most powerful API of any of the APIs I've seen. It has the most powerful command line tool, which I need to put a thing in there. I forgot about that. The GitHub command line tool that we're going to install is by far the most powerful command line integration with any source management tool I've ever seen. So much so that GitLab has stolen it and forgot to change some of the GitHub references in the source code. I understand. Somebody just told me that 2 days ago, because they're so far behind. I mean, it's just amazing, and you're going to see how it's amazing. So how do you go create a GitHub account? Go to GitHub, go to the website. I mean, I don't have to tell you this. You guys know how to do this, right? Sign up, click on the sign up button, put in your thing, pick a username that's got lower cases and no spaces. This is one of the biggest annoyances I have. Look, you do you. If you want to do that, fine. There are a lot of people that disagree, but I think you should keep short, memorable, sustainable, user IDs that people can remember. So, because it's your brand. They're going to need to be able to go find you again, and they're not going to remember how to type you into the URL. Spend some time thinking of a really interesting but short username and use it for the rest of your life. Make your emails that, maybe make a domain that. I mean, RWX Rob took me some time to figure that one out, but I think you should really spend some time on this. Minecraft hates Creeper 277 is like, no. So verify your email. We already talked about you need to have an email account. This is why. Choose a plan. You can do the free plan for now. I actually pay because I like private repos that have GitHub websites, but I just like supporting GitHub, honestly. Honestly, I like supporting them, even though Microsoft's behind them. Is your name a valid email name? I mean, I think so. Is it memorable? I would shoot for a name personally, I would shoot for a name that's under 10 characters. That's just me, but everybody's got different choices on this. For some of the repos, you can go follow a few repos. You can get a list of the repos that I follow, RWX Rob on github.com/RWXRob. You can go have a peek at that. Why GitHub now? Creating a GitHub account is just a task. It's an invitation. Is it just a task? It's an invitation to join a global community of developers. I sound like I'm shilling for Microsoft right here. I'm not. I'm really not. I'm shilling for you. This is going to help you be better in a million different ways. And so whether you're learning a code, managing personal projects, contributing open source, taking notes, GitHub provides the tools and visibility for your skills to connect with others. Start your journey today. God, Rob, I sound like the ShamWow guy there, don't I? And become part of the development. Sometimes I read my own stuff. I'm like, did I write that? Yeah. Okay. So install Git and GitHub tool. So we're going to do this next. We're going to take a break. And by the way, that is the end of this video. So this has been Holiday Boost number 2, and we've gotten to the point where we're installing the GitHub tool, and we're going to do 2 more videos today. So we probably will get all the way through the prepare section if everything goes well. So take a coffee break. I'm going to take a break, and join me for the next video.